All right, Luke Ronnestrand checking in for the Thorn Brothers Northwest Show online sale. And I'm going to be not talking about muskies today. I'm going to be talking about the marabou and hare bass jigs. And what these are just little tiny jigs that were kind of made popular, I would say, about a decade ago by the Canadian anglers out in the Door County area. You guys came down from Canada and just kicked everybody's butts on these things. And if you talk to a lot of people, you can never really tell exactly where the whole thing started, whether it was Lake of the Woods or some of the the way down south in the States kind of thing. But the Canadians were definitely the ones that made this whole deal popular. And it's a really cool way to catch fish. For me, I love it just because it's the polar opposite side of the spectrum from everything that I do fishing wise. I mean, it's light tackle, they're light lures, but it's really awesome. They truly catch everything that swims, and it's just a great way to catch fish. Big bass and big walleyes. You can catch some big crappies on them too. But yeah, I'm not sure exactly how long I'm going to talk here. We'll see where it goes. I think I have 15, 20, maybe 25 minutes of material. But bear with me here. I'm going to have my notes. Our current climate and shelter in has me spending a lot of time with my kids, which has been great. But my daily dialogue is mostly with a 4, 5, and 7-year-old. So bear with me here. But so again, what these are is they are small, light, little marabou and hare jigs, marabou being the most popular, but they're mostly available in 16ths, 3/32, and 1/8 ounce sizes. Sometimes you'll be able to find them down to a 32nd of an ounce, and then you'll see some guys making some a little bit bigger, like 5/16 in that. Again, they're made out of marabou and deer hair and some craft fur. And I'm going to kind of show you some of the more popular brands that are out there. On the deer hair side of things, there's the Howie's hair jig, made out of Howie's Archery and Tackle in Sturgeon Bay. And then you have the little VMC marabou jigs. Another super popular, really high quality jig is the Outcast Tackle, the Fighter Fly. And one thing that is really cool about these is they do have a little keeper on there for the plastics, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Here's just another version of a custom deer hair jig. And then you have the marabou jigs that I make for Thorn Brothers and for Howie's. And all of these offerings here, with the exception of the deer hair stuff, is they'll be available through Thorn Brothers that are on the online sale. And I just click there and go to the Thorn Brothers hair jigs. But those are some of the brands that I just went over, and I'll talk about some of the kind of the different designs that go along with these jigs. I want people to kind of look at these a lot like you look at like a crankbait or a hair jig or a heavy cover jig. You don't want to have just like, you don't want to go with, I'm just going to use a 3/32 ounce Fighter Fly and that's going to be my hair jig, because all of these different jigs really do different things. They have different profiles. The VMC is definitely the smallest profile of all the jigs. It's also tied on a round head jig with a 60-degree hook. So that's going to swing differently through the water. The Fighter Fly has a really cool head design, more of a bullet head design. And that is it's going to have a very thin profile. And again, this is going to have a different swing under the water. And then our Thorn Brothers hair jig, this is tied on a very flat jig head. This is the Midwest Finesse. I forget what they call it. It's the Do It Midwest Finesse mold. It's just a very flat, almost like mushroom style jig head. And what's really cool about this jig head is what this is going to do for you is it's going to slow the fall of the jig. But even in a 16th ounce version, like this right here, still very, very wide. So it's going to displace a lot of water. And when you're kind of getting familiar with fishing this way, this jig, even though it's very light, is going to actually have some drag in the water, and you're going to be able to maintain contact, bottom contact. And then these are also tied to be a little bit bigger profile. They are definitely the biggest of the marabou jigs that you can buy. And then I put two hackle feathers in the back, kind of to make it look a little bit more buggy and just a little bit different in the water. And then next thing I'm going to talk about here is just the jigs themselves is color. Most of the stuff that you're going to see written about marabou jigs is going to come around and talk about. It's going to be mostly your stock black and purple colors. And these are absolutely fantastic colors. They catch fish everywhere. If I was going to go to a body of water that doesn't receive a lot of fishing pressure, I guess you could say just less educated or dumb fish, these are going to be the two colors that I'm going to go with. But on some of the other more pressured bodies of water, that's where I've seen some of these other kind of different colors really shine. Some of the browns and purples, and then like kind of that smoke purple. They're similar colors, but they just have that different shade and different hue, and something that the fish have not seen before. Again, here's some other cool color options. I really encourage people to look at these. Not just like a marabou jig. They're just supposed to imitate a leech, and they're just supposed to be black or black. But just think of this as like a bait that has a lot of cool movement in the water. It's gonna be, think of it like a Senko. So I mean, we all know how many fish get caught on the watermelon orange Senko, and that looks nothing like a crawfish. But the same thing with these guys. So it's kind of a really cool perch that Kurt Hansen at Thorn Brothers came up with, and then this is just one of our Mille Lacs killers that we sell out of Thorns. This is our brown and orange. But again, look at this. Start looking at these in kind of a different way, and then with some of the different ways that you'll fish these, you'll actually be fishing them close to the bottom, and they actually are a really good little baby spring of the year craw imitator. So, kind of moving on to what you need to fish these. As far as equipment goes, these are relatively light, compared to the things that we're normally going to use. So you almost have to have a rod that you're going to pair specifically for those, and highly recommend using like a medium light or a light spinning rod, and a very long, long relatively speaking, in a 7.5 to 8 foot variety. And then the great thing about Thorn Brothers is that with the custom rod shop, we've been able to make all kinds of really awesome rods for doing this. I do carry quite a few options in the boat when I'm out there, again, lights and medium lights. But the first one I'm going to show you here, this is just an 8 foot light, and then paired with a Daiwa Tatula LT 4000. I definitely go with the longer, the larger reels. The biggest thing is that they have a larger spool arbor. You're going to get less line memory. You're going to get longer cast. And the great thing about this LT series of Tatula reels is that it's a 4000 size reel that weighs as much as your stock 2500 size. I still do use some of the, I'll still use some of the 3000 size, but that's about as small as I'll go. That's a Daiwa Ballistic 3000. But that's about as small as I like to go, again, just because of the arbor. And again, lights and medium lights, I would say that I fish with the lights for fun, and when I'm fishing with the really light jigs at 30 seconds and a 16th ounce. But if I am fishing a tournament, that's when I absolutely love and don't really go away from our medium light extra fast in the 8 foot. That's just as great. It's got a little bit more power, so you can get the fish in a little bit quicker, and you can definitely get a little bit more power for zipping those light lures out there. That is one thing that's just amazing about fishing this way. Again, it's like the polar opposite of my musky fishing. It's that where you're using a light or medium light rod, and when you hook a fish, you're actually getting a really good fight out of it, and I think that's one of the things that makes it so much fun. Again, you can check these rods out. They'll be on the custom rod part of the website. And then also, as far as if you're not looking for a custom rod, or another good option would be Daiwa makes a Kage series of rods. They have a couple in their walleye series, what I want to call like their light troll spin, and we have like a 7.5 foot light that's really cool. And then also the Fighter 7.5 foot hair jig rod's a good option there. St. Croix also makes a wide variety of 7.5 foot medium lights that are also very, very nice. All right, on to page 2. So now we're going to talk about line, and that's something, the line choices are a very big deal with this. There's going to be a lot of personal preference when it comes to the different lines. I basically go out there with several setups, and for the majority of the time, I'm using 6-pound Suffix nano braid. This happens to be a spool of 8-pound, and this would actually work really well too. And then I'm using some kind of a fluorocarbon leader. I will also use, when it gets really, really calm out, I'll use 4 and 5-pound Maxima monofilament, which is right here. And one of the biggest reasons why I go with the Maxima when it gets really calm and it's really sunny out is, out of all the different types of lines that you can have, monofilament, braid, and then you know, throw like a fluorocarbon in there. Your fluorocarbon is going to be the most dense. It's going to sink the fastest, therefore your jig's going to run the deepest. Your monofilament's going to be, you know, it's not going to float, but it's going to be the most buoyant. And then your braid's going to be somewhere in between there. But that's something really kind of key to keep in mind, you know, when you're talking about what you're going to be, or thinking about what kind of line you're going to be using and how you want the jig to fall in that. But the most bulletproof is definitely going with your braid, the fluorocarbon leader. It's also the easiest to field bites with. It does cast the nicest, and also you can get away with using a little bit heavier line there. And as far as the braids go, a lot of that's going to be personal preference. You know, they make this stuff all the way down to 4 or 5 pounds. And the great thing about Suffix is it really is an over-engineered line. So like their 4-pound breaks it a lot higher than 4-pound and so on. But I use a lot of their 6. And if you're not comfortable with that, you can use up to a 15-pound braid. It's just going to affect your casting distance just a little bit. But again, we'll kind of talk about jig weights and line and personal preference. And one thing that's kind of really unique about this, the whole marabou and hair jig thing is that I would say myself personally, I'm really a 16th ounce and 3/32 ounce guy. I use the 16ths in like 8 feet of water or less, and then from 8 feet to 15, 18 feet if it's, you know, not too windy out. That's where I'll use the 3/32. But with manufacturing these things, I would say that I probably sell 2 to 1 1/8 ounce over the other 2 sizes combined. And the reason why I believe that is because the 1/8 ounce is probably the most user-friendly and the easiest to use and get familiar with fishing, like how to fish a hair jig. And that's where you can get away with using a little bit heavier rod and then getting away with like your heavier braids. So if you don't want to invest and get yourself a more traditional hair jig setup, and you kind of want to stick with your mediums and your 8-pound lines, that's where you can do an 1/8 ounce marabou jig, and you'll be able to fish it and get the hang of it and do quite well with it. The next thing I'm going to talk about is leader length. And again, this is a lot of personal preference. There's a lot written about, you know, the different ways to do this. I would say that day in and day out, what I go with is about a 12 to 14 foot leader. I want my knot to be just outside of the reel when I'm casting. This is going to eliminate that knot hitting the spool and increase your casting distance. And then again, I'll use for leader material, I use mostly 6-pound fluoro, but you know, if you're fishing a little bit less educated fish or dirtier water, you can definitely go up to 8-pound in that. And then another really popular way to go about it, and this is even going to get you more casting distance, is just a short 3-foot leader. And you're not going to be in your guides, it's not going to hit your reel. That's going to be the easiest and just a rocket to cast. As far as knots go, I would say for myself personally, I use a lot of the Albrights or the Alberto knot. It's a pretty simple, small knot that's gonna go through your guides pretty easily. You just basically have one tag end of fluorocarbon that'll get a little bit catchy. The double uni knot is a good choice. It's a really strong, really easy knot to get right every time you tie it. However, that knot is bigger and bulkier, and it does, I think, affect your casting distance a little bit. And then the other is the FG knot, and that is probably the best. But to do those well, you have to be a very good knot tire or get yourself a tool for doing it. So I stick with the Alberto knot or Albright's, just because that's just a really easy knot to tie out in the boat. I'm just kind of a consistency guy there. Again, with leader material, big fluorocarbon guy. I'll pretty much use any type of fluorocarbon I can get my hands on. Again, 6 or 8 pound. Really big Seaguar fan. I will say though that Abrazex, I use a lot of, because I use, have so many rods rigged, I don't buy the small leader packs a lot of times. I just buy the big spools of mainline. But the Abrazex is definitely the most durable of the fluorocarbons that I've tried so far. So I really like that. On to page 3. So how to fish them. So basically, with manufacturing these things and talking to a lot of people and doing a lot of research over the years and just talking to as many people as possible, I've kind of come to the conclusion that there really is no wrong way to fish them. There's definitely ways that work better at certain times. For me, I'm a big fan. If you do a little bit of research on this, you're going to hear about guys talking about the pendulum and glide type retrieves. And let's see if I can do this in here without hitting the ceiling too bad. But that's basically where you're gonna cast the bait out. When your bait hits the water, you're gonna reel down and get your line tight, and then basically you're just gonna let the rod go from 9 o'clock and just kind of let the rod slowly swing up to you, and then you're just gonna pause right here and hold, and then that bait is basically just gonna kind of swing towards. What you're doing is you're lifting the bait up, and then right here the bait's gonna start to swing towards you, and then it's gonna swing down. And it's just kind of this swinging and gliding through the water type of retrieve. And basically you'll kind of get so in tune with it once you're doing it that you'll even feel it at the top of your swing. You're holding it, and as the bait swings towards you, you're gonna feel it make bottom contact. And a lot of times that's okay. The same thing when you throw them out there, with your initial descent, reel all the slack down, point your rod tip at your lure, and kind of just lift and hold tight. And a lot of times I'll just let that lure swing all the way down and sit on the bottom and let it sit there for a couple seconds before I'll start doing the pendulum and glide retrieve. And then the last thing is close to the boat, I will on that last, you figure you're kind of that last pull or two away from the boat is just letting that jig swing towards you, reeling down, and then just letting it swing down. And a lot of times their last chance to grab it is they're going to nip it and grab it at that last initial descent. A lot of them will grab you both sides. Another super popular way to do it is basically cast it out there, get the slack out of your line, and just kind of winding it in slowly. Again, picking which part of the water column that you want to have your bait near. You want it mid-water column, or if you want to have it near the bottom. A lot of the places that I fish, it seems like the last couple of years, it's been really key to be near the bottom. So, the next thing I'm going to talk about is when to use these. And a lot of times that they're kind of perceived as just a springtime lure, and they do work amazingly well for that. I would say the coldest water that I've ever caught them in has been in that low to mid 40 degree range, 42, 44 degree water. But it seems like they really do excel when that water gets up around 50, especially the marabou stuff starts to really go about 50 degrees. And then through the rest of the spring. And they definitely, they also are very, very good when bugs start to hatch. I got up on Lake Vermilion. We have bug hatches up there basically from opener to freeze up, and I'll get fish on them all year up there, fishing them around the, fishing them, when we have these bug hatches. My favorite colors when we're starting to get those hatches are definitely the ginger olive. That's just a really buggy color, and then I'll also use the browns then. But the biggest thing is that anytime where you have bass that are feeding up in the water column, when they're not keyed in on something on the bottom, you can catch them on these things year round. And they really are an awesome bait. And the other thing that's really cool about them is, if you do some research on them, you'll have a lot of people that'll say that they're not necessarily a great search bait. And I wouldn't say that I strongly disagree with that. Obviously, there's things like spinner baits and crankbaits, things that you're going to just throw out there, you're going to reel in really fast that are better search baits. But for me, the majority of the bass fishing that I am doing is in the springtime and in the early season. These are a wonderful search lure for me because you are, I guess I would say I'm more of a methodical fisherman. And the great thing about fishing with these things is these things are going to tell you where there's biting bass. They really do catch. If there's a school of bass in the area, they're definitely going to catch every single one of them. They're a very powerful lure for getting bites and getting big ones. So, but last thing I'm going to share with you here is if you haven't, dove head first into this yet, you're just kind of looking to get into it. There's a lot of great stuff, a lot of great videos and articles online. There's been a lot of, if you just do a search and look up Jeff Gustafson, Josh Douglas, Seth Fighter, any of the in-fisherman stuff that Matt Straw has done, and some of the videos and content from Eric Hadia and Brett Alexander. These guys are going to show you how to use these things. There's going to be a lot of, like I said, a lot of great articles and a lot of great videos on how to fish with these. And again, I can't tell you how much fun they are to fish with, how effective they are to fish with, and it definitely is my favorite way to catch bass and catch big ones.